Thanks for tuning in to the Illuminations Podcast. We love having you here. It is our mission to be a beacon of light on your journey towards conscious and mindful living. In our weekly episode, we bring you inspiring change makers in the field of spirituality, healing, personal growth, and wellness who share their insight and expertise so you can navigate your way to a happier, healthier, and more purposeful life.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Illuminations Podcast. My name is Nia Roy. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, yoga teacher, and sound therapist here at Illuminations. I would like to welcome you all back to a very special episode with a guest that has been on the show once before. Her name is Dr. Doris. Dr. Doris is a NLP Meta Master, and she will be talking to us about how to stop negative self-talk and enrich your relationship with emotional intelligence. So first, welcome to the show, Dr. Doris. Such a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you, Nia. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Likewise, the pleasure is all mine. So before we get started, I know that we will be mainly talking about emotional intelligence today, but because you are a NLP Meta Master trainer, I'm really curious to know, how does emotional intelligence fit in with NLP here?
Originally, we had 50 days of NLP. Yeah. Originally, we used to, for the most part of my career in the United States, I taught for 12 years, 16 to 20 day NLP practitioners, and then another 20 days NLP masters. Yeah. And now what happened is we basically just segregated some of the body of knowledge and took something out, right, and gave it a new title and a new name. So everything that has to do with emotions, because emotions take a little longer to be analyzed and to be felt and to be identified and to work with. Yeah. So emotional intelligence, I mean, that's already 20 years ago. We basically just looked exactly at which of the parts of the knowledge has to do with emotional intelligence. Yeah. And then we took that out.
So for those who've never heard of NLP before, can you give us a very quick, short explanation of what exactly is NLP?
So neuro-linguistic programming means we learn more about how we think, neuro, how we talk to ourselves, linguistics, and to others, and P, as a result of how we think and we talk to ourselves or others, there are patterns. And you can also say programs. Because in a way we are programmed. And in a way, the way we relate with each other, we are programming one another. So neuro-linguistic programming has created a huge body of knowledge with lots of modalities and modules and blocks of knowledge and concepts and hands-on skills that empower you to think more consciously and to interrupt and change your thoughts and emotions.
Wow, that's fantastic. So I'm really excited to just dive deep into this topic today and explore how it is exactly that you help people get rid of these negative self-talk. But first, can you please shed some light on this whole concept of negative self-talk and why it comes so easily to us compared to thinking positively all the time?
I'd like to immediately switch to emotional intelligence because it is better to be explained with emotional intelligence.
Okay.
So basically, your limbic brain has this fight-flight mode.
Yeah.
Because it's like the reptile brain. And it makes us protect ourselves. So whenever there's a perceived threat or a perceived attack to self, the limbic brain will do a very fast reaction.
It's a survival mechanism,
It's
basically.
a survival mechanism. Let's say for negative talk, because today we talk about negative talk.
Yeah.
So the moment that you say something that you certainly will regret afterwards is when this limbic brain basically receives the blood and is pumping, and one says something in order to protect self.
So it's like a natural response that you get when you go through a negative talk in your head, basically. So it's almost like a self-protection that happens because
Most of the
this.
time, let's say 90%. 90% of the negative talk, not self-talk, negative talk, that means it goes through one more filter. So negative self-talk can happen quite subconsciously. You are not aware of it.
Yeah.
Any bad mood or negative mood, needless to say, of course, is based that goes along with this negative self-talk. However, the self-talk we are mostly not aware of, except we study neuro-linguistic programming or emotional intelligence, and we literally shed some light on it. So back to explaining your question. So the limbic brain is basically reacting like protecting the life, or like an animal who let's say the tiger goes into the territory of the lion, and then roar.
Yeah.
Or hunting, this is my hunt, this is mine, and somebody takes it, and a reptile would like begin to scream, to shout, to react volatile. And so this is what is left in humans if they don't use their neocortex, if they don't use their language, because we do not have to respond like that. Absolutely not. You can prevent negative talk. It appears as if you have no choice. It appears it comes so fast because somebody triggers you. Mostly it's loved ones, triggers you, and then you feel, bang, here you are, and you say something you wish you would have not said, or you even raise your voice, or you come out in a way that the other feels attacked.
So it's almost like this animal instinct that just comes out and responding from that animal instinct.
You got it. And it is not so for humans, because we don't have just the reptile brain.
Yeah.
We have the neocortex, and we are supposed to use our self-talk more consciously. That's why I chose the title for today. This talk, self-talk. Of course, stop negative talk means start positive talk, because you can't just stop it. You have to do something instead, because this amazing brain goes on and goes on and goes on, and it does this meaning making. And as it's doing this meaning making, which even continues when we sleep, called dreaming. This meaning making just goes on and goes on, and neuro-linguistic programming teaches you how to regulate it. Emotional intelligence teaches you how to identify your emotions and transform them.
So I'm really curious to know, so what does the procedure look like? Where do we start? How does that look like?
To learn it?
Yeah, like emotional intelligence. So if we are trying to stop this negative self-talk, where do we start?
So the first thing for emotional intelligence is to learn how to identify the emotions, because there's a lot of emotions, and they all have a different quality to it. They all have different patterns to them. So for example, stress, anxiety, fear, depression, and all the forms of all of those are basically important to be able to say, oh, this is what I'm experiencing. Because how are you really going to transform it if you don't know what it is that you are experiencing?
So first, acknowledging and realizing what exactly you're feeling.
There are so many forms of stress. Some forms of stress are more related to people, some to time. There are so many forms of anxiety, for example, the lizard phobia, the snake phobia, the anxiety of claustrophobia, or nowadays we have the phone phobia. Then there's something called phobophobia. We are afraid of the fear.
Yeah.
You're fearing the fear. So all of these go along with the same pattern.
Yeah.
In emotional intelligence, you learn how to identify it. And the way how I teach emotional intelligence, which is a whole new level on top of what came out in the 80s with all the well-known directions of emotional intelligence. For example, Daniel Goleman, Talent Smart, 6 Seconds, Reuven Bar, many different directions that pretty much existed since the 80s. I've taken it one level above because I feel it's not theoretical. I like to make things practical. And I like to give the tools that you have in your hand and you can use them. So I invented a very fun thing. It's so powerful and empowering. It's called emotion yoga.
Okay.
So we stretch our body and we do yoga. And how many people nowadays do it?
Yeah.
It's so well known.
Yeah,
And everybody
so many,
understands we have to stretch in order to stay flexible.
Yeah.
So with emotions, it's the same. How can you say, oh, I don't want this anxiety, or, oh my God, frustration is so terrible. I hope I won't be shouting today. I hope I won't be. You're already charging the emotion. So in emotional intelligence, in emotion yoga, you literally, one person calls an emotion and everybody does literally a physical step and steps into this emotion, and together we feel it.
Wow.
So we'd feel it even like, I'm frustrated, or I am angry, I'm feeling angry. And so as we together do it consciously and you step out of it, you create a greater possibility for you to be more conscious, because it's not about not feeling it.
It's feeling it, but
It's
then knowing
feeling
how
it
to regulate it.
and consciously, so
Wow.
that you can say, okay, this is first. Before you have never stepped into it and did the difference. What is frustration? What is irritation? What is frustration? What is anger? What is rage? First of all, it's unique to everyone. However, it's a good idea to be a little bit more aware.
Yeah.
I think this should be taught in school.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
And so you learn how to step into the emotions that bother you, but then, of course, also into the emotions that you like. So typically when we do a emotion yoga on the first day of the workshop, we start with emotions everybody likes. Joy. I am feeling joyous. And everybody goes into this emotion, let's say for a minute or two, and notices the physiological changes, notices the change of the water level in the eyes, notices the smile and where it comes from. And then upon a clap of the hand, you change the emotion and all of a sudden you go into frustration. Then you change it again and you go into bliss. Then you change it again and you go into depression. I'm so hopeless. And then you change it again and you go. So like body yoga, in emotion yoga, you literally learn how to step in and out of the emotion and become more flexible with this whole body of emotions, so that your consciousness increases significantly about when you want to consciously feel what.
Because I can clearly see how effective this can be, because when you experience something very negative or very intense, like anger or depression, it's almost like it feels never ending. It's a feeling that, you know what, you don't realize that it's very momentary and it can change. So what you're doing with your practice, whether it's negative emotion, whether it's positive emotion, it's realizing how you have the control to shift between emotions at will. And the more you exercise that ability to switch in situations where it's no longer an exercise, you can actually do it.
Correct. And you actually increase the choice. And needless to say, there's 3 emotions that we make sure you will feel extensively, which is anger, crying, and laughing. So if you see the little baby naked on the table, that's what it does. It does, or it does, or it goes, ah. These are the 3 pure primary emotions. So we learn how to beat the pillow and release anger consciously.
Yeah.
To a degree that you don't have to be mean to anybody.
Yeah.
For the rest of the day. I believe in letting fire emotions be expressed by the body. I go to the gym every day and step my anger into the treadmill to be sure that I'm not releasing it and then anybody else.
Because you imagine where the more you repress, the more it just stays in. Whereas if you have an outlet in some way, it need not just be to another person, but it can have different kinds of outlets.
Exactly. And it has to, because believe me, I have investigated long enough before I created this in psychology or in counseling or in so many bodies of knowledge. It's like, okay, practice your calm. Be calm.
Easier said than done.
Come on, show me one person who has a very fiery emotional body, who easily explodes or who easily expresses what is called frustration or anger, and then they all of a sudden breathe and become calm. I've never seen this work long term.
Yeah.
Maybe it works for a minute, but not as a real solution. Whereas since I do these anger release therapies, and I have done them extensively on myself first, and then put them into as part of the emotional intelligence workshop very nicely, not very long, just like an expression and a taste of it. It's so successful. If somebody knows how to consciously navigate their anger and is responsible for expressing it in some form, they don't need to release it at other people.
Right. So tell me, what are a few tips that you can share with our listeners when it comes to managing their emotions, managing their self-talk, and just enriching their relationships?
So, needless to say, stop negative talk, begin positive talk. So begin the positive talk from yourself to yourself, as you said earlier, the internal talk. We have to learn how to reward ourselves and praise ourselves and speak positive things about ourselves, isn't it? Automatically this no or not enough or, negative talk comes. So we have to practice to praise ourselves, to say positive things about ourselves. And then, of course, practice how to speak praise to one another and make different tips and tricks. Language of appreciation is a language where you learn 5-6 different forms of how you can speak appreciation in a way that it, comes fluid, that it comes easy, that it's available to you, and that it doesn't sound made or fake, like you are fantastic. something like this.
So you should actually feel it in the body.
Right. I mean, some people use these words, brilliant, fantastic, but you can even sense it's not really felt. So it's important that you feel it and not just say it.
Wow.
So
that's a very good point, by the way. Very good point.
Yeah, if you don't really feel it in the body, then it can come across fake. So thank you, Nia, for that. So enriching relationships means making them more nourishing, because we want to be nourished in our relationship. And in order to be nourished, we have to also find out, what does the other really experience as nourishment? If one person finds it extremely important that they see a note, or they get a gift, or they receive a card with a written form. Another person really wants the word, and wants the word in certain ways or in certain forms. Then another person may experience an enrichment in their relationship because you walk with them, or you touch their hand when you speak, or you touch them, or you hug them. I mean, needless to say, in my opinion, hugging is very, very, very important. Touching the other person is important. It comes along with a chemical called oxytocin. It's scientifically proven. It basically brings your serotonin into a different cycle. So everyone, though, will prefer one of those over another, or experiences one of them stronger than the other, to say, I feel loved, I feel cared for. So now, whether these are relationships, husband-wife, or siblings, or parents, or grandparents, any relationships where we get particular triggers so easily with each other, we need to know that trigger, and then trigger in, cue in that positive response, that we have to practice it. That's why learning emotional intelligence is very, very important. Investing, 1 day, 2 days, or many more days into literally learning how to feel more consciously, and how to express your emotions in a way that it furthers relationships. And the same I also teach. I give corporate trainings, and I tell you, in the last 3 years, most corporates ask for emotional intelligence. Because they know that backstabbing or gossiping or negative talk amongst employees is destroying the performance levels.
Exactly.
And is creating negative environments.
Wow. And what I'm hearing, like from based on all the tips that you're sharing, I can really sense the underlying foundation that comes down to action, rather than it just being understanding or like a realization. How you need to actually put in the work. You need to act upon it. You need to do something about it. And I imagine you need a lot of willpower. Not a lot in the sense what it requires is your willpower, your intention, your need to do it. And you can't just sit around, hope that things will get better, or there's an easy way around it, basically.
Nicely said, willpower, Nia. I agree. But before even willpower, don't we first have to be conscious? We have to be aware. If I'm not aware, this is an emotion that is negative. It's limiting. In fact, it's violating, because words can hurt. We call it violation. So if you say something to somebody else that really, really hurts them deeply, it can be worse than physical force. If you physically hit someone and the skin goes open and the blood flows out, it's a primary message. Simple. You have violated someone. But if you say something, for example, you are stupid. If parents say that to a child, the child may still hear that voice in their head when they are adults, believing that they are limited within their intellectual capacity or whatever the wound is. So emotional wounds can hurt more than physical force.
So one last tip for someone who has been holding on to something for a very, very long time, and they perhaps don't know where to start. How would you ask them to go about doing it?
I would ask them, do you feel more comfortable coming for a one-on-one session? Or are you ready to learn in more details exactly many different components that may help you? If they feel more comfortable coming for a one-on-one session, I'm an emotional facilitator trainer and emotional intelligence coach. They can come to one-on-one sessions with me or one of my trainers. I have at least 7 trainers with me that have also been certified as emotional facilitators, and they can take a session with them and then in a one-on-one experience things, learn things, for example, emotionally release and express. Or always recommended is to do a 1 or 2 day workshop to learn a variety of many different principles and concepts. Not only that, but like you say, different actions, different behaviors that are called emotional intelligence.
Thank you so much, Dr. Doris, for sharing all of this with us today. It was super insightful, and it was so nice to have you back on the show. So until next time, I thank all the viewers and listeners as well, and hope you all have a great day. Take care and live light.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to have you tune in again next week as we discuss more engaging topics on relationships, health, career, self-care, and spirituality. If you'd like to help support this podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave us a rating and review. We'd be extremely grateful. To catch all the latest from us, you can also follow us on Instagram at Illuminations World or visit the Illuminations World YouTube channel for more inspiring content. See you again next week, and until then, live light.